Hey, this is Nicholas with the Backyard TARDIS here with some more random thoughts. Originally, I was going to do this week, I was kind of talk about the state of TV, kind of the difference of now that it's gone to streaming versus when it was on networks, the 22 episodes versus now the 6, 8, 12 episode seasons we have now, binge watching, dropping the whole season at once or part of the season and then week to week or just week to week. So what's the superior method? What has been lost, especially when it comes to sci-fi television? What I feel is lost, because I think the family sitcoms, those 30-minute episodes, they seem to go well. And then the comparison of that, the 25-minute episode versus the 45-minute episode. What's better? And I still am going to do a video of that probably in a couple of weeks. So hit me up, either drop a comment about it in this video or hit me up on Twitter at BackTardis and let me know what are your thoughts on the matter and discuss. But something that I've been wanting to do is I listened to so many podcasts, I wanted to do some podcast highlights. So just take, every couple of weeks, take a podcast and highlight why I love the podcast and why they might be worth your checking out. And while sending me merch does not necessarily guarantee you, it certainly will bump you up on the list. And I just got a thank you package from the Salty Nerd Podcast. Do my best not to expose their address. But I really like how they used the sticker for the letter seal. So they sent me some of those. Let's see here. I can get it to focus. So I got a couple of those. Yeah, you know me. I don't edit. I got this picture here. You got Matt Vader, Jude, Alex, the Salty Nerd, and then Matthew Kadish, writer extraordinaire. So they got all there, and it says, from all of us at the Salty Nerd Podcast, thank you. Remember, stay salty, my friend. And then lastly, I got this really nice magnet. So I like that. It's got some good weight to it. So that'll end up somewhere on my van here. My van is just covered every which direction in podcast stickers. So, the Salty Nerd Podcast. Why do I love this podcast so much? Well, those who know me know that I don't like outrage content on YouTube. I don't like people who just complain about the same thing over and over every week. Every time a new movie comes out, they got to do 12 videos on why the movie's going to stink, why the movie stinks, and why the next movie's going to stink. I'm not into that. I like celebrating the things I love. And so a lot of people have the misconception that that's what the Salty Nerd Podcast is, that they just go and they dump salt on everything every week. But I always like Alex's tagline, salt is a seasoning. When used in the right moderation, it's best. And so they do get salty, but they usually don't all agree. And that's what I love, the nerd banter. And they really shine, especially when they're doing like 80s movies. They do a lot of 80s action flicks and go in and they're just talking about the ridiculousness, knocking back a couple of drinks. And usually, either Jude or Matt Vader just thinks, oh man, this is that. Or it's Alex with kids and he doesn't like kids in movies. So he'll have some salt. But everybody has like their own thing that they bring to the table that they like, and get everyone else to either tell them why they also love that or why they're completely wrong and have lost all respect for their nerddom. So, but it's just fun, playful banter, and nobody gets heated. Some of the podcasts that I think have been some of the best have been like they had their retro rewatch. And then in that one, I remember it was like Angry Red Planet was what Alex picked. And that, that was like a 1960s movie. I got the shirt, the Bat Rat, Spider Crab. I loved just how much has come in the podcast from that episode. How many times have they said, Jude, go make me a sandwich? And they know that it's all playful, playing off of that episode. Of course, I'm trying to think of what the third movie was, but I know Escape from New York was in there. And that was like the other two movies that the podcast picked were all 80s movies, and Sully went back to the 60s, and that kind of started their love of the 80s. I also loved the one that almost made Matt Vader quit the show. That was the Monsters and Robots, and they did Chopping Mall. They did the like '98 Godzilla, and they did Bad Taste, I think was the other one. It was a really awful one, and I remember just like completely. Peter was so mad because he wanted Pacific Rim and like a newer Godzilla movie, but they came up with those, and but I just love those, especially Chopping Mall. Like the coverage of that was so fun. And then just going through, they've done a number of ones recently. They've been going through the Star Trek movies, and seeing Jude, who has always been, when they get really sci-fi, Jude checks out and says, "You can get a replacement for me that week on the podcast." She says, "I'll do the OT Star Wars, but none of the other Star Wars, none of the Star Trek, that kind of stuff." But they said, "Okay, we're gonna go to the convention, so we're gonna go through that." And Jude loves the classic Star Trek movies, and I loved it how much she loved it, and what a different perspective, that she's not coming at it from the typical sci-fi nerd. She's like enthralled with the costumes and the characters and stuff like that. So really loved getting her take on those movies. So that was another great series. Of course, they've done Schwarzenegger marathons. They've done Jean-Claude Van Damme marathons, Jurassic Park. They've covered Star Wars, all these different things. But truly, a fun podcast. It's a podcast that makes you laugh, and I think it is best either if they all like something, or even better if the table is split. Makes for some of the best banter. Obviously, sometimes they all don't like something. That usually doesn't come out well, but you can't win them all. Overall, the Salty Nerd Podcast is a really fun podcast, and they just talk about movies they love for the most part. They just go in there and have witty banter, and so it's definitely worth checking out. And like I said, some of those ones I mentioned, like their retro rewatch, stuff like that, definitely an episode to go back and listen to that to kind of get an idea of what their show is all about. Some of their stuff covering more concurrent news shows, not as much, though. I do think their series on The Boys, I didn't watch The Boys, but their coverage of The Boys was amazing. I listened to a couple of podcasts that covered The Boys, and most of them I was super confused. I listened to the Salty Nerd Podcast, and their breakdown of the episodes, I actually understood what happened in the episode. So I thought that was good. So that's just kind of my little thoughts on that. Give them a follow. I'll put a link down to their channel, and I'll be covering some other podcasts in the future going here. And if there's any that you listen to, you want me to talk about, we'll see if it's one I follow. I currently follow over 50, and I have listened to at least over 100 different unique podcasts regularly at some point, so I probably have listened to it. With that, I hope everybody's having a good day, and I'll catch you next video.